Welcome to the CrossKnowledge podcast. Here we discuss the trends, opportunities, and challenges of corporate digital learning. Let's meet today's host.
Welcome to the CrossKnowledge podcast. My name is Renan, and I'll be your host today. I am delighted to introduce you a new series on our podcast, Leading Voices, Thinkers Shaping Tomorrow's Organizations. In this new series, we delve deep into the future of organizations with some of the most influential minds of our time. Our goal is to provide you with fresh perspectives and actionable insights that will propel your business to new heights. Now, I am thrilled to kickstart this series with the one and only Tiffani Bova. As a growth strategist, executive advisor, keynote speaker, former growth evangelist at Salesforce, and former research fellow at Gartner, Tiffani brings a wealth of experience to the table. For 6 consecutive years, Tiffani has been ranked as one of the top 50 business thinkers by Thinkers 50, which is the world's most reliable resource for identifying, ranking, and sharing the leading management ideas of our time. Forbes describes Tiffani as someone who, and I quote, reshapes our perception of growth. She's the esteemed author of 2 Wall Street Journal bestsellers, Growth IQ, Get Smarter, about the choices that will make or break your business, and also her most recent book, The Experience Mindset, Changing the Way You Think About Growth. Tiffani also wears the hat of podcast host for What's Next with Tiffani Bova, where she holds conversations around what's next for organizations and individuals as they look to innovate and grow. You may have read her insightful commentary on major media outlets such as Bloomberg, BNN, Shatter News, MSNBC, and also Yahoo Finance. Tiffani also contributes to esteemed publications like Harvard Business Reviews, Forbes, and Entrepreneur, which have solidified her status as a thought leader in the field. Tiffani has also collaborated with CrossKnowledge to develop the program Boost Your Growth IQ, which is already available for organizations seeking their path for growth and ready to cultivate this mindset from within. Today, we're going to delve deep into the topic of growth IQ. Tiffani, welcome. It is a great honor to have you on our show.
Oh, thank you for having me. That was a lot in the bio, but I appreciate
Well, yeah. Tiffani, just to get started, can you briefly explain what you mean by growth IQ?
Yeah, it was sort of one of those things where I was trying to say, how do I want to frame this thinking? Okay, well, thinking. Okay, how do I want to help people get smarter? Okay, so thinking and smarter, right? And then it kind of just lent itself to, I didn't want to say mindset, right? Because obviously Carol Dweck is the growth mindset is just so well known. But it's not just about a mindset, it's about being smart about it as well. So I'm like, I think IQ hits on it. And so growth IQ as a concept, and then obviously as the name of the book was born.
That's great. And what motivated you to delve deeper into growth IQ?
Well, I think I have been a practitioner, sales, marketing, and customer service leader, and been in and around tech now for over 30 years. And I can tell you that what I started to hear as an advisor and when I was a leader back in the day is that people would always say, look, growth is getting harder. And when I say growth here, I want to be really clear. I'm talking about top line growth, right? So sales, revenue growth, not P&L profitability growth, while extremely important. I'm talking about top line growth. And so it's getting harder to sell. It's getting harder to get eyeballs. It's getting harder to, cut through the noise from a marketing perspective. It's getting harder to keep customers. It's getting harder to keep customers happy and engaged. And so if it's getting harder, do we need to reimagine what has worked for us in the past and how we could adjust those things to work better for us in this new market context, which is personalization, always on, the buyer demands and expectations have changed. Experiences become super important. So you can't say what we did 10 years ago, 5 years ago, or maybe even a year ago will work for us today. So that's why getting smarter about the choices you make was really the appropriate subtitle for the book.
That sounds really interesting. And when you started your research about growth AQ, or when you started to delve deep into this topic, did you have any specific audience in mind?
Yeah, that's actually the first question. Like any publisher or agent will ask you, who's it written for? And let me just tell you, the wrong answer is everyone. Right? But now that I have the book, I've written the book, and the book's been out, I could say everyone, right? But in reality, whether it's an entrepreneur or a startup, a mid-sized business, a leader of a division in sales, marketing, or customer success, a CEO of a smaller brand, or even a leader in a division of a larger company. But it is really a way in which you can deconstruct the things that you're currently doing today around growth, i.e. sales, and is it optimized for the current market context? Do you have the right sellers in the right roles? Do you have the right tools in place? Do you have the right processes? Are you leveraging technology correctly? Are you spending your time on the most impactful items? While that may sound like you, if you're listening to this and you go, yes, 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 and 5 out of 5, you're like, yes, find me on LinkedIn and drop me a note, because I would say, I want to hear how you got to yes across all those 5, because even the best and fastest growing organizations in the world will be like, well, yes, kind of, maybe, used to be, getting harder, and yes, right? Or maybe they may say no across the board because things have really been disrupted in their market. But, change is not slowing down. So even if it worked for you last quarter and you were feeling fairly confident about it, or by the way, you're growing leaps and bounds, that is always a horrible teacher. Success is a lousy teacher. That's a Bill Gates quote. That I'd say that if you are successful right now, that's when you really need to pay attention, because it may give you a false sense of security that things will just continue to grow and grow into the future.
Yeah, and what's really interesting is that it's a combination of lots of things, right? It's not just like one thing, but it's really just a combination of lots of things. And so, how do you believe your approach offers a unique perspective compared to what's out there in the market in the same field?
Yeah, I tell you this. Look, I am my way of sharing thought leadership, if you will, or advice or insights, is I am a practitioner of what I do, meaning like I look back and say, what were the strategic initiatives, strategic frameworks, strategies that worked in the past? One. Two, what are other leaders that have said historically that worked? And so one of them was the Ansoff matrix, which it's a 2x2 square. Many people have seen it, but you may not know what it's called, the Ansoff matrix, right? Sell more of what you have to your existing customers, sell more of what you have to new customers, sell new things to existing customers, sell new things to new customers, sort of those 4. And that is from the 1960s. And Ansoff came up with that matrix and used it as a strategic framework to work with clients to be like, sell more to your existing customers, sell more of what you have to new, and he bucketized them obviously into the 4 and then advised companies. And I said, it's a great framework. So 4 of my 10 growth paths pay homage to the Ansoff matrix. But what I did was I modernized a lot of growth strategic frameworks that have been in, the last 100 years or so. And I've modernized them with technology, social, mobile, cloud, big data, AI, machine learning, the internet, social media, like whatever you want to pick, and said, well, is it really only those 4? Is selling more to your existing customer in the 1960s is very different than selling more to your existing customer in 2024. It's very different, right? Well, you can text message them, you can send them a direct message on TikTok, on Instagram, on LinkedIn, on X. You can put stuff on YouTube. I mean, you could deliver by drones. Like, wait, what? Like, I mean, that's not what they were thinking back then, and billion-dollar brands have been built with 20 employees. I mean, there's now this conversation is, when will a $1 billion brand be created by one person powered by AI? I don't know. You think it'll come soon, right? No way in the 1960s would someone say, yes, a $1 billion company can be stood up and developed and scale with one person and just AI. They'd be like, no, you need to manufacture something, right?
Yeah.
You need to have R&D, you need to have facilities, you need to, train your products to your customers. They need to go to a retail establishment or a corner store to buy it. It's very different. So I think that has served me well by going back and not reinventing the wheel, but modernizing the wheel and saying, what things now do we have at our fingertips that could make what has worked in the past even better?
That sounds really, really interesting. And can you share a practical example or story that illustrates how your approach helped overcome growth challenges?
Yeah, look, the research, and it wasn't mine, it was a statistic that there's 80% of companies, 85% of companies will hit a growth stall at some point in their history. Meaning, like, we were growing at 10%, and then it became 8, and then it became 6, and then it became 4, and then we were just flat. We weren't losing money, but we weren't growing, if you will. And during the recession, sort of flat was the new up, because at least you weren't losing revenue. And if you're highly disrupted and you're growing at 1 or 2% and the rest of the market is growing faster, like, at least you're not in the red. You could still, find ways in which to grow. But that growth stall is where you're just declining in growth and then you just flatten out. And usually what happens is the growth stall started to signal itself 6 or 8 months, 2 to 4 quarters ago, but nobody was paying attention. So once you're in the growth stall, it's very hard, I should say. It's very hard to course correct in quarter, meaning like Q2, right? January, February, March is Q1. April, May, June is Q2. You're in May. You all of a sudden go, we're in a growth stall. We need to fix this and grow again before the end of Q2. Really tough. Possible. We could throw a lot of money at it. You could throw a lot of people at it, right? You could, go acquire a business. I mean, you could do something maybe, but it will take you almost 12 months to 18 months to course correct from a growth stall, unless you stay on top of it. So when it was 10% growth and then it became 9, 8, 7, 6, the alarm should have started to signal, hold on, right? Something's going on. And so maybe it was over 2 or 3 quarters and you at least flatten out 6% growth, but you didn't do that when you got to no growth, right? Or 1% growth. So, paying attention to the business, looking at those signals, making sure you understand what's going on in your selling top line revenue will go a long way to try to avoid that statistic of being, in that 85% that will face a growth stall. Again, everybody will pretty much. It's how early into the growth stall you uncover it and identify it, and how quickly you can turn that around.
That's wow. That's super wow. And so we have developed, CrossKnowledge has developed, you helped us develop this program based on your first book, Boost Your Growth IQ. What key insights and practical takeaways do you hope professionals and organizations gain from engaging with this program?
Look, if I can get people who, engage with this video series and they stop and say, I hadn't thought about it that way. Or if they say, I'm not looking at my business to the level of rigor that I should be, then it was a total success. Even if it's just one thing, if they changed one thing because of it, right? They said, wait, hold on a second. I don't actually have KPIs or key performance indicators that are looking at this part of the business. I should. Or, you know what? We have been declining, but no one has stopped to say, why is that happening? We just think, it's an anomaly, right? It was just a bad quarter, or we lost one big deal and it'll just course correct. And because that's what it's always done, but we're in a different market. So I think for me, if the listener, right, the viewer gets one thing out of it that made them pause and do something different, then for me, that was a success. If they get more than one thing, it was a huge success, right? Because what's really hard is having a beginner's mind when you are a leader who has been consistently successful. Like you have a success mindset, which is, I know how to do this. Maybe you lived through the recession of 2007 and 8. So you're like, this is just that again. It isn't. Look at how much has changed in the last 15 years. AI, TikTok, it's endless of how many things are different in 15 years when it comes to technology alone, let alone sort of what businesses are able to do themselves. So for me, that's success. If someone really embraces growth IQ and says, you know what, we're going to do an inventory of our business. We're going to understand the context. We're going to figure out which growth paths we're on. We're going to understand what's working and not working. We're really going to get into a better planning cycle and aligning our people to the priorities of the business and really do the work. Geez, I mean, that's a home run, right? That's super success for me.
Yeah, you're right. So for our listeners who may want to learn more about your work or get in touch, how can they best connect with you?
Yeah, I'm super active on social. So definitely follow me on across the platforms, X, Instagram, LinkedIn, even TikTok. I have the podcast, as you mentioned, What's Next with Tiffani Bova, across all your favorite podcast streaming services. I've got a YouTube channel, but I am maxed out on connections on LinkedIn. Unfortunately, like LinkedIn said, no more connections for you. But drop me a note. If you get an opportunity to watch the course on CrossKnowledge, and something stood out for you, or more importantly, you heard something and you tried something and it worked or didn't work. Like, I'd love to hear those stories, because the goal is that I don't just say it, but it actually adds value. And if it adds value in some way, I love those examples. And I love hearing from people that are open to letting me make them feel a little uncomfortable, after 30 or 40 minutes of listening to the course, then it was worth their time.
That sounds great. Tiffani, thank you so much for your time. It was a great pleasure to have you on our show.
Oh, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. And I'm super excited to have more and more people take advantage of the course.
So for our audience, thank you for listening. If you're eager to delve deeper into the program we have developed with Tiffani Bova and explore the possibility of implementing it in your organization, don't hesitate to connect with us at CrossKnowledge.com. We're excited about continuing this conversation and collaborating with you further. Until next time, stay curious and keep learning.
Thank you for joining us today. We hope to see you again for the next episode of the CrossKnowledge podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with your friends and colleagues.